speaking to a client here today, he had his house on the market. It went to one open home that had 40 people through, 12 interested parties and 3 offers within a week. So people's appetites are starting to come back.
So I'm just glad to see that the tariffs that were introduced at 145% and 125% have now both been dropped by 115%.
Jared, at the moment, would you fix your interest rate on your home loan for a year? Jared, welcome back to our weekly catch-up where we talk all things in the market this week and news this week. Now, I wanted to touch on the biggest news overnight is there has been a trade deal, China and the USA. Now, for everyone that was talking around the US-China and the tariffs that Trump was imposing on everybody, and this was so bad, and the markets went down 20%, and we were talking about this is the most volatility in the market, especially to the downside since COVID lows. There's actually been a deal overnight.
You just need to put your thumb up on the chart and cut out those big upswings and downswings so you feel confident, don't you? Because very, very short-lived.
It is absolutely. Basically like a V-shape because the S&P 500 is actually above where it was when Trump introduced all of these tariffs. So wild swings to the downside, also wild swings back up to, above where it was on Liberation Day, as President Trump called it. So who caved first, do you think, Jared, in terms of the tariffs that have now been reduced by each country?
Look, I'm not really bothered on who caved first. I'm just glad to see that the tariffs that were introduced at 145% and 125% have now both been dropped by 115%.
Amazing, yes. So there's still tariffs on China for the next 90 days at 30%, as you quite rightly pointed out. On the USA, China has got some tariffs at 10%. So they'll still work through a trade agreement, but I think it's a step in the right direction, both countries getting together and noting that this is far too high. It is great for world trade. Everybody can panic a little bit less. And the art of the deal, President Trump, I think that things are starting to work and he's got some very smart people around him. I really love the team that he's got working for him personally, and very smart people that have been doing some great things through finance and trade for the last 20 or 30 years. So everybody was talking about he's pulled these numbers out of thin air, but it's actually working out. There was a trade deal announced with the UK first a couple of days ago. They've got 75 other countries that are ongoing with negotiations. I've seen Germany, which is a large powerhouse in Europe, also want a trade deal. So I would imagine that there's countries lining up to get themselves a trade deal with the USA being the largest economy. So as it's working out, mate, it seems like he knew what he was doing all along.
And great news for Australia as well, post-election, have a little bit more confidence going into the Chinese market with all our exports of our produce. So yeah, very, very good for us as well.
I think from a business cycle, mate, it works really well because businesses have got a little bit more certainty, clarity around what's coming. So if we can get some trade deals negotiated and in place, it just helps global trade, it helps global businesses, but more importantly, that flows down to small businesses, the backbone of every economy. People are willing to spend more money, then that has a ripple effect right the way through getting your daily coffee, which is great.
What do we reckon that has to have a flow-on effect with the interest rate announcement that's on the cusp?
Yeah, I think Michelle Bullock, she's going to cut, my personal opinion, by at least 25 basis points. I hope that she would cut further because we're in a variable rate here in Australia. So Australians are really starting to feel the pinch, especially as we come out of fixed rates and everyone goes back up to the variable rates, which are no doubtly higher than where their fixed rates were. So if she cuts by 25%, I love the NAB economist, their chief economist has come out and said that they're hoping for a 50 basis point or expecting a 50 basis point cut with over a 1% cut, or which means, 4 25% cuts in the next, well, they actually said August. So that's only 3 decisions away. So a 50 basis point cut, 25 and 25, which we know puts more money back into the consumer, which they can then go and spend however they like. We hope that they continue paying off their home loans where they are and building up a little bit of cash buffer. But I think that'll have a flow-on effect into our economy, absolutely.
And it's certainly showing in the fixed rate markets as well. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of lenders in the 1 and 2 year rate. 1 year can be sort of still a little bit more volatile in what we're seeing pricing in terms of ranges from just under 6 to very low 5s. But the 2-year rate at the moment, pretty consistent among a lot of the banks, being in the very low 5s as well, which is a good sign for that short to medium term now, that there's a bit more confidence that banks are looking to fix for a longer period of time for the average Australian, which also means that their funding costs for long-term and wholesale is coming down as well.
Jared, you're getting asked the question, should you fix it for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think people are pretty educated in this and seeing a lot of the news cycle as well, and they can see that there is potentially a few more on the horizon. So there's certainly been the question asked around it. Seeing a couple of splits in terms of part fixed, part variable, but certainly nowhere near the amount that we saw in 2020 or 2021 when rates were at their lowest.
Jared, at the moment, would you fix your interest rate on your home loan for a year?
I'd love to be able to answer that, but that's also very specific to the person that we're talking about. So at the moment, looking at the market, generally speaking, I think things are pointing to the fact that variable will continue to fall for a period of time, and what that will then look like, we don't know. But for the average punter, the decision between fixed and variable obviously usually lies with what their family situation is, what their budget situation is, whether they need the certainty on what their repayments are. So it's a bit of a hard one, but if we're just talking about the difference in price right now, I think that there'll probably be a couple more drops in fixed rate offerings, especially for those 1, 2 and 3 year rates.
Fixed rate, do you think that we can get a 3 handle in front of it over the next 12 months for any time?
Look, I think probably in the next 12 months, that's probably not out of the question, especially if there is 3 or 4 very quick cuts. And we look at what that looks like then over the sort of the medium term from there. And if we're talking about the end of the year being 1% down from where we are now, so that would show owner-occupied home loan sort of in the high 4s. 3, probably a bit far, but probably not out of the question, depending on what the markets are then going to do over the preceding 12 months.
Geez, wouldn't that be nice? Home loans back with a 3 in front of them.
What about a 2? Take me back to 2020.
I don't think that's going to happen, but we may get somewhere down further than where we are in the next 12 months.
Even something with a 4 in it, it's a lot more sustainable for homeowners, a lot more sustainable for investors, a bit more of an even keel between things, and gives people enough confidence to do what they want to do as well.
Yeah, we speak to a lot of brokers, a lot of agents, a lot of commercial agents as well. One of the big things that I hear back from real estate agents is that people are just holding on to their money a little bit longer, waiting for interest rates to fall, especially investors. If they're looking at a return on their principal, they will have, if this returns 5% from the rental yield, they get 5% from a bank. It's pretty safe in a bank. So it is not cutting deals, but people are hesitant. Whereas if all they can get out of a bank is 3.5%, but they can get some income from anywhere for 5.5%, it becomes a little bit more attractive. So then people start to spend more money, and it has a ripple effect through the economy. So interest rates, very blunt tool, but hopefully we're on the right side of the trend, and it is coming down.
And a mix of that and the availability of credit as well has the biggest driver on prices. So when the return on investment isn't as bad and looks pretty sharp, and the availability of credit is going up for people, that's usually where we see prices and markets start to improve. So I think we'll probably see open home numbers continue to rise over the next couple of months. A lot of agents that we're talking to still continue to see week on week increases in numbers to open homes. For both brand new listings and existing ones. So there's good signs at the moment, I think.
Speaking to a client here today, he had his house on the market. It went to one open home that had 40 people through, 12 interested parties and 3 offers within a week. So people's appetites are starting to come back. Bit like my appetite for a Bulldogs premiership this year continues to increase with how the boys are performing, coming back from 20-0 down. I was very disheartened to see the halftime score, basically turn it off, and then come back at the end of full time, and the boys had run rampant. How good.
That was a good game.
How are those Eagles going?
Look, I think we'll win on Friday night. I think Moses will then get picked in Origin.
Backing him for Origin?
Yeah, surely.
Wow.
Surely.
Over the top of Cleary, do you think? Or in
Maybe
partnership?
with Cleary, yeah. Especially after all the stuff that came out with Luai on Sunday night with his dad coming out and what was it? Get out clause activated.
Oh, no, after they got
Yeah.
thumped 60
Yeah.
points. No, really?
Yeah. All you need is your dad going on Instagram after that, isn't it?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Wow. That
No
does
get out
hurt.
clauses here.
No get out clauses. And, mate, I'm really hoping for a Blues win. So there's been a couple of Dogs boys injured, now suspended, so they unfortunately won't get picked in Origin, which means that they're still going to have a pretty cracking team week to week. So if we can come through this Origin period unscathed, heading into finals time, mate, though I know that there's a lot of Bulldog supporters out there who are getting very loud.
The Gus Gould effect.
The 5-year plan coming to fruition. Thank you for listening to another little weekly catch up with Jared and I. Things are starting to improve from a business point of view. Trump's tariffs are playing into effect for everybody globally. Markets have bounced back strongly. And all in all, it's a great week when the Bulldogs win.
It is a great week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great weekend.